All right, we are live. Yes, yes. Hello, hello, my friends. It's Jill Osborne from the Interstitial Cystitis Network. It is Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. And boy, does time fly. My purpose in doing these meetings is to make you strong, knowledgeable, informed. I want you to be able to walk into your doctor's office with confidence. I want you to be able to walk into your doctor's office with hope. I want you to be able to walk into your doctor's office ready to talk about treatment and finding the best treatment for you. So let me introduce myself. My name is Jill Osborne. I'm the president and founder of the Interstitial Cystitis Network. I'm the longest serving IC support group leader in the world at this point in time at 31 years and counting. I love my job. I get to work with patients almost every day. Now, normally, hello, Ann. We are simulcasting right now on YouTube and Facebook. I want to apologize to my YouTube members. Last week, the stream collapsed. And it wasn't me, it was YouTube. So you did not get to see a support group meeting last week, but we did do it on Facebook. And I'm going to be making some changes in a couple of weeks. I think I'm going to split it up. I think I'm going to do a support group meeting on Facebook on Sunday and maybe another support group meeting on YouTube maybe during the week. I'm not sure. But we're going to make a few changes just for fun. You know, because life is about change. Things happen. Things happen. So normally when I do these meetings, I have a little 30-minute intro, and then I just take your questions. We will go as long as you want to go. I will tell you that it is a glorious day here in California. It is 80 degrees. We've had a very, very gloomy winter. And I went and just walked around the lake and was out in the sun for a while. So if I'm a little wind-torn, that's why. It was glorious. I don't do well in the shade in gloomy weather. I need bright, sunny weather to really feel good. Okay, so as I was walking, I decided that I wanted to talk about something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. The best part of my job is when I get to tell you what nobody said to me when this first happened to me as a teenager. This is not your fault. You have done absolutely nothing wrong. You should not be carrying any shame or any blame for what you are going through right now with your bladder and pelvic pain. This was inspired by an artist that I follow on Twitter. If you could see her artwork, you would be like, why is she not in every museum in the country? Pen and ink drawings of animals. Just gorgeous, gorgeous perspectives. And it shocked me to see somebody who I consider brilliant struggling to find their worth. But then I realized we all do that. We all do that. When you are faced with a medical condition that leaves you homebound, that takes you away from the things that you love to do. We all have lost friends. We've all lost massive amounts of friends. Why? Because we couldn't get out and do the things we normally did with them, right? Like virtually all of my tennis friends but one I've lost. And I grew up in the tennis community. And you know, I was driving home from my sister's house last night. And you know, whenever I go see her, and I love my sister and I love my brother-in-law, I love my nephews and their wives and children desperately. Because they're my family. And every time I drive home, I cry. Because I see what I've missed. that my symptoms struck when I was a teenager. Bear with me if I cry, it's okay. And all you want is to belong. You just want to belong. But you get laughed at. You get horrified when your mother tells the teacher on the field trip they must stop the bus to let you pee. Self-esteem begins to go down and down and down. And then you've got other events that you just can't do. That isolation builds. Now, I was very blessed that I was able to go to college, and I did well in college. I was pre-med. I did really well in college. First job after college, IBS. Severe IBS, because I'm a widespread pain patient, like 40% of the IC patient population. I have multiple pain conditions. The IBS hit. And I'm not lying. They were bent over and screamers. Every single morning for 3 or 4 years, I laid on my bathroom floor in the fetal position. Every goddamn morning. Excuse me for swearing. Self-esteem plummets a little bit more. Then the anxiety hits. Why me? You see, I was watching all my friends get married and have babies, not me. And I will tell you that my self-esteem was non-existent. By the time I was like 28, 29, non-existent. I felt like I was a failure. I felt like it was all my fault. I didn't understand why I had all these pain conditions. I felt like I was being punished. And I watched other people start their families, and I couldn't do that because I was laying on the floor in pain. And then we started getting new information about IC. We learned a little bit about genetics, that in some cases, it kind of falls along in families. I'm going to explain that a little bit. Not as a disease. There's another reason for that. And then the big research hit about the pelvic floor. Yes, Bree, you can. Give me a minute. You're welcome to ask any question you want. You guys on Facebook, please understand the Facebook sometimes doesn't let me scroll. So be the squeaky wheel and keep asking your question until I answer it. Okay, so the research came out about muscles. Because here's what I knew. Bladder therapies never worked for me. Here's what I knew. When I was 14 and this all began, I was diagnosed with a urethral stricture. My urethra was tight. I couldn't pay through it. They had to stretch it open with a urethral dilation. And they gave me a ton of antibiotics. And the assumption back then was this was a bladder disease. But again, then the pelvic floor research came out and I went, oh, I went and had my pelvic floor checked. My pelvic floor was as hard as concrete. As hard as concrete. It was stunning how bad my pelvic floor was. And then a little bit more research came out, and it's like, well, wait a second. Did I cause some tight pelvic floor muscles? No. You know what happened? I broke my tailbone when I was 14 years old. And that's why this all began for me. That's why this all began for me. It's one of two reasons why. Not my fault. Not your fault. You were hurt. This is injury. This is trauma for many of us. Now, if you're a Hunter's lesion patient, that's a different story. It could still be injury. It could be a uterosacral ligament issue, or it could be a viral infection. But for 80 to 85% of IC patients, it is a neuromuscular disorder. And I think about those years I lost, and it pisses me off. because the perception that the world gave me at that time, and you've all had it, how many doctors told you it was all in your head? How many? We've all heard that. How many of you got lectures about not wiping correctly? You know I'm right. The best part of my job is when I get to say to you, this is not your fault. I don't want you to do what happened to me. It is not a reflection of your character. It is not a reflection of your soul. It is not a reflection of your role in your family. It does not change the person you are, male or female. You are injured. So getting back to when I was driving home last night, and I always, it's got really rough for me after my parents died. I'll be on my 2-year anniversary in a couple of months because I have an empty home now, because I don't have children. And it's hard. It's hard to know that an injury changed our lives, or an event changed our lives. My friend Diane Manhattan, who helped me start the IC network, she had a hysterectomy at 21. At 21. Because they thought it was her uterus. It wasn't. It was injury. I'm sure of it. And so I want you to walk into the world proud of who you are. I want you to walk into every doctor's office with your head held high. Because this is not a reflection of you. You are injured. And our goal now is to try to understand that injury more. But the other thing I feel compelled to say is, I think, for those of you who followed me, I've had a very rough 2 years. I mean, I was caregiving for my parents. I lost them. Then I got breast cancer. The girls are gone. And I realized that today I am not the woman that I was 2 years ago. I'm not. There is grief is a beast. I woke up the other morning to my dad yelling, Jill. I heard it as clear as I could have heard it. It woke me right up. But now I'm also in the position of, now that I'm not caregiving, I realize more than ever in my life that it is my responsibility to make a happy life. Nobody else can make our lives happy. We have to make our lives happy. We have to decide the things that we have to decide how we want to live. We have to decide the things that we want to do that will bring us joy. We have to bring people that we love. We have to make our own families. We have to make our families sometimes out of people that are not related to us. And I know that that can feel hard when you're in pain. But there is a good level of self-determination here. As an example, you cannot sit at home and suffer. If you're struggling, we need to get you to the doctor to figure out why you're suffering. And that's hard to do when you feel terrible. You want somebody to come in and rescue you, it's not going to happen. You have to rescue yourself. And this is why I do these meetings, to get you educated, to get you informed. to get you to a place where things will be better. The other thing I think that's hard for a lot of us is taking action. It's really easy to come up with an excuse on how I can't do this right now. That doesn't work anymore because the only person that's determining your life is you. If you're unwilling to take that action, don't expect me to do it. Don't expect anybody else to do it. Whether it is looking for work online so you can work remotely, whether it is applying for insurance, whether it is writing a book, in the end, we all have hands. We all have our brain. We can use them. IC doesn't stop you. Remember the guy? You guys remember the moment that changed my life was when I had an emergency room doctor say to me, "You will forever be a burden on your family. This is your life. Get used to it. You will always live with pain." And I was like, dude, wait. I got 3 college degrees. I will prove you wrong, you son of a gun. How dare you say that to me? And I came home and I started studying. Nobody was going to tell me I was going to be a burden. Oh, hell no. Absolutely not. And the IC Network, the #1 website on the internet for the last 30 years, is a result of that studying. And that is the knowledge that I bring with you today, is I have studied IC every single day, literally, for the last 31 years. It helps that I'm pre-med, it helps that I have I've got a pharmacology degree and psychology degrees and things like that. I mean, that certainly helps. But I want you to fight like I fought. I refuse to be labeled anymore. My God, as I was walking, I was going, okay, who are you today, Jill? #1, you're a woman, you're a caregiver. I am proud that I was a caregiver. Yes, I'm a pelvic pain patient. I am strong. You are strong. I am proud of what I've done. You should be proud of everything that you've done. I'm a survivor. I am a breast cancer survivor. And again, I want you to be proud of the person you are today. IC is not your fault. Don't let anybody tell you it is. You are hurt. You are injured. And now we're going to try to figure out what that injury is. And of course, how do we do that? We do that with phenotypes. Thank you, Renee. We do that with phenotyping. We're doing so well now, helping patients find the treatments that will work for them because we're phenotyping you. And as Harriet just says here, we are survivors. And by golly, we need to march to the White House to get more research. We should do it. I don't know what's happening with the IC research, guys. I got to be real honest with you. We have one fantastic IC research team, National Institutes of Health. I have no idea what's going on with them. Let's hope we keep that going because they're the ones that helped us find the pelvic floor. They're the ones that helped us find the virus. So anyway, all right, enough of me talking. Let's go back and we're going to take some questions. I just refuse to live with shame anymore. I want to go back to the people that mistreated me when I was younger and say, you know what? Look what I've done. You were wrong. Look what I've done. I'm not a burden to my family at all. I've cared for my family. Life-saving care. I saved my dad's life twice. There you go. Okay. All right, so let's go. So again, we're live streaming. So when I look this way, I'm looking at Facebook. When I'm looking this way, I'm looking at YouTube. So YouTube looks like they're having problems again. Yes, YouTube is down again. Lost the connection. Okay, so for those of you on YouTube, come on over to Facebook. YouTube is down. Second week in a row. All right, well, let's go back here on Facebook. So again, please be the squeaky wheel on Facebook. Wendy says, my doctor told me I had to pick my battles. Yep. Bree says, okay, hold on. I need to scroll back. Come on, Facebook. Let me scroll back. Okay. If you asked questions earlier, please, please, please re-ask them. Anne says, my doctor said there's bacteria on the culture, asked how I felt. She asked if I wanted macrobid. I wasn't so sure. I think it's a bladder flare. Do you always need an antibiotic if bacteria is found in culture? No, of course not. Because there's supposed to be bacteria in your urine. Urine is not sterile. There's a big colony of bacteria that live in your urine that's supposed to be there. And so we don't just kill everything. We have to look for pathogenic infection. That's the challenge. And so how do we know if it's a pathogenic infection? Two ways. Your symptoms combined with your urine results. If they find a little bit of E. coli in your urine, but you are symptom-free, do you need to treat that? Probably not. On the other hand, if you've got a fever, if you're up all night, you're peeing every 10 minutes, and they find Enterococcus facialis, yeah, you need to treat that. I was reading a new study on Enterococcus right now. We're getting lots of new things going on. Okay, Facebook. It lets me scroll back and then it resets. Erin says, back on PEA, doing better. Excellent. Peora, Peaora, is one of our favorite newer supplements because it acts to calm nerves down and reduce pain and discomfort. Diane says, hope you're doing well. You know what? I'm doing well because I'm walking again. I passed all my heart tests. Hello, Kayleen. Nice to see you, honey. Hi, Bonnie. Sarah said, just had my second cysto. Oh, come on. On Monday, my pain is unchanged. Sorry, it just scrolls back when I'm reading it, and then I have to reset it. Am I just going to be in pain every day for the rest of my life? It's been 15 minutes. No, of course not. Of course not. You're not going to be in pain for the rest of your life. That's exactly what I had a doctor say to me. We just have to figure out what's causing it. So here's the thing. Whenever they looked at my bladder, I had a perfectly normal, healthy bladder, despite the fact that I was peeing every 15 minutes. And I was in agonizing pain, and I was extremely diet limited. And yet I had a healthy bladder. How is that even possible? How can you have a healthy bladder? You know what, guys? I'm going to go ahead and shut down YouTube. All right. So how could I have a healthy bladder? Well, because my symptoms were being caused by muscles and nerves. And that's what we eventually figured out. And that is what eventually got me virtually pain-free. And if I flare now, it's always a muscle flare. It's never been my bladder. I have a perfectly healthy bladder. I have a picture of it. All right, hold on a sec. So Sarah, you need to be phenotyped. And if you want to call me this week, we can talk about that. See if we can find what specific patient group you're in. No charge. You can call the IC Network. Phone number's right on the top of our page. I'm going to be very busy tomorrow, but I'm available much of the rest of the week. Hi, Sandy. Sorry, guys. Facebook is I'm just scrolling up and back and up and back. Every time I read something, it pops. Kayleen has pain in her tailbone. I'm sorry to hear that. Lori says, my very good friend told me you have to make your own joy. That is just so true. Ree says, I got diagnosed in 2023 with IC, and ever since I've had constant pressure and frequency. Nothing I've tried has worked. Okay, so what our guidelines say, if you're not responding to therapy, if you're getting worse rather than better, we have to take a step back and revisit the diagnosis. What have we missed? What have we missed? Because clearly they've missed something. And so there are a lot of different things that they could miss that could be causing some of these symptoms. Okay, hold on. I'm just trying to deal with the Facebook stuff. Sarah, Wendy says, I have a fibroid pressing on my bladder, had to drive 4 hours to a specialist to find it. Then I went back and told him I saw the psychiatrist, and she told me I didn't need to be there, and then told him what the specialist said, and he stared at me. Yeah. Yeah, like, a fibroid can be all in your head, that you need psychiatric care because you have a fibroid. That's ridiculous. Hello, it's a fibroid pushing on your bladder, causing the urinary symptoms. It's not a psychiatric condition. Sarah said, unforgivable medical event. Hello, Margie. Harriet says, things are better for me now after taking action, not spinning my wheels anymore, getting a great doctor, adhering to the treatment regimen. Harriet, really glad to hear that. I've come to realize that I am, if things happen, if I'm an avoider, if I perceive as something to be threatening, I walk away and I don't go there again. And I've done that with food. Like, I don't eat oatmeal because we figured out oatmeal was triggering my IBS. So it's very easy to walk away from it. Same with chocolate. But I also walk away from other things that I find hard. And I've been working with a therapist to re-engage again. Because there's disappointment. There's disappointment, and you don't want to be disappointed again, but gosh darn it, I'm not going to let this limit me anymore. There are things I want to do. As a cancer survivor, you have this new reality of, you realize that you could have lost it all. And I'm 64. Hopefully I'll have 20, 25 years left. I want to live them with joy. I don't want to live them with fear. I want to live them with joy. And I don't want to live them with pain. But I'm not struggling with that pain so much, because we found my problem and we're working on my problem. Laura says, I have 100 cysts and I've been through 2 surgeries to remove them. I get better, then way worse. I'm worse now. I get so down. I'm in so much pain. I just met. You shouldn't be in this much pain. You shouldn't have this much urgency. This isn't typical, but it is for me. I'm suffering. Thank you for pushing through and still showing up for us after all that you've been through. You give us hope. All right. So Laura, girl, you got Hunter's lesions. So we now have 2 proven in research studies causes of Hunter's lesions. Number 1, a viral infection. Do you have any history of mononucleosis? Epstein-Barr. They are consistently finding the mononucleosis virus in patients with Hunter's lesions. If you do have a history of mono, then it might be time to do an antiviral or at least lactoferrin. Because remember, we had this fantastic lactoferrin study that came out last summer. Lactoferrin is a protein found in colostrum, so this is not a synthetic drug or therapy. This is an essential part of our immune system. We have lactoferrin right now in our tears and in our vaginal secretions. Lactoferrin is a frontline defense for our body, human lactoferrin. But as we get older, lactoferrin levels can drop. And so they have been extensively studying the use of lactoferrin from cows to see if that would boost the human immune system. And guess what? It does. And there's a lot of research behind it now. And so 2 years ago, researchers in Italy were able to prove that boosting the human immune system with lactoferrin helps to prevent recurring UTIs. That's great news, because there are people out there who do get recurring UTIs. But then For IC, last summer, they released their IC study, and their IC study was like no other study I've ever read in 30 years. 31 patients who took lactoferrin for roughly 4 to 6 months. They measured inflammatory markers through blood testing before and after therapy, but they looked at the bladder before and after therapy. And you know what happened after therapy? 28 out of 31 had no flares, and their red inflamed bladders had become pink and healthy. Pink and healthy. And Hunter's lesions almost completely disappeared. So why would lactoferrin be helpful? Because it's a natural antiviral. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. And so for those of you out there who are struggling legitimately with a recurring infection, boosting your immune system with some lactoferrin on board, it's a great idea. I mean, there's even research with cancer, which is why I'm taking it. Now, the other thing that we know is linked to lesions is a injury to the uteral sacral ligament. Now, this is weird because, Jill, hello, you're talking about a virus here, and now you're talking about a ligament here. How could they both be linked to wounds of the bladder wall, known as Hunter's lesions? Well, the second known cause of lesions is nerve trauma. Nerves that are injured, nerves that are inflamed, release a toxic substance called substance P. Laura, hold that thought. Substance P. Substance P is damaging. It creates redness. It creates inflammation. So when nerves get irritated, they spread it. You know, they just like start going ow, 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 ow. And the way they go ow is by releasing a chemical mediator which injures surrounding tissues. Okay, so why would a ligament cause a nerve injury? So the uterosacral ligament is a ligament that holds the vagina in place. It holds the uterus in place. If this ligament is damaged, what happens? Hello, prolapse. Things start to fall when they shouldn't be falling. So if you have struggled with a prolapse or a rectocele or a cystocele, there's a very good chance that you might have a problem with a ligament. But the one thing we didn't know that the ligament people knew is on top of the ligament is a nerve bundle called the visceral plexus. And it's the nerves that come out of the bladder. So the ligament doesn't just hold the uterus in place, the ligament holds nerves in place. And when that ligament stretches out, what happens to the nerve? It loses its support. Then the nerve starts to stretch. Then the nerve starts to get inflamed. Hello, Hunter's lesions. So a couple of years ago, we had a published case study of a woman who had a severe prolapse and severe Hunter's lesions. And when they went in to repair the prolapse, they found the broken ligament. Her uterus was backwards because her uterus had lost its support. So they fixed it. They repaired the ligament. They got the uterus back into the proper position. It's called posterior fornix syndrome. That's the official name. And something remarkable happened. Her Hunter's lesions completely disappeared. She is considered a complete and total cure. So when that study came out, and I'd never heard of posterior fornix syndrome, I dove into that. That was discovered in 1993. And you look at the researchers back then, and they're going, hello, people, this causes bladder problems. But, you know, the problem here is that you know, doctors play in their sandbox. Urologists look in the urinary tract. They don't look at the ligament. And so we just had a paper come out a couple months ago from these researchers saying, hey guys, this ligament injury needs to be a phenotype of IC. This is a very clear and distinct group for whom a bladder treatment will not work. It won't work. It's a ligament problem. And I agree with them, and that's a big article in our latest magazine, which I should have here somewhere. Oh, it's floating around. Okay. So somebody asked, where's the lactoferrin? Where's the Peora? You can find it in the IC Network shop. I mean, as soon as that research came out, you know, I was a week after post-surgery. I had to sit on it for a couple of minutes because I had to get off of pain meds before I could make sure that I was interpreting the data correctly. And I was just super, super excited. Now, some people would have said, you know, Jill, come on, that was one study with IC. You should wait for more. And I take a very different perspective on this. Number one, the research study was incredibly good. The data was good. The way they conducted the study was good. But more importantly, there were no side effects in the study. It comes from cow milk, cow colostrum, so the risks are quite low. The safety profile is excellent. But most importantly, there are patients suffering right now. And if there is even a remote chance that this is going to help reduce somebody's pain with Hunter's ulcers, I'm like, why the heck not? Why the heck not? Oh, it's just not enough. This is a coconut mango. It's mango drink. It's really good. Really like it. Laura says, how do you know if you have a prolapse? You feel it coming out of your body. And you'll feel a lump kind of at the entrance to your uterus, especially when you're standing. You might have some trouble starting urination. You might be feeling more urinary symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I got to scroll back. Facebook, please let me scroll back. Okay. Okay, hold on a sec. How many years is done? 50. Mary says she's an avoider too. I try to distract myself, but I think that's been an issue. All right, hold on. Laura said she had mononucleosis twice. There you go, my friend. There you go. Lisa, thank you so much for the 50 stars. Really appreciate it. Bree says oatmeal bothers her too. Yes. Is taurine good? I'm not aware of it. Jennifer says, Jennifer, great question. Can pelvic therapy really cure IC? Okay, so Jennifer, you don't cure an injury, you heal an injury. So remember, at the national level now, American Urology Association, our guidelines say they're not finding disease in the vast majority of IC patients. So this perception that we have an incurable bladder disease is wrong. And they admit it. It's wrong. IC is, in fact, a pelvic pain syndrome or a bladder pain syndrome for which there are many potential causes, phenotypes. So, for example, if your IC began after you fell on your tailbone, is that healable? Yes. If your IC began after having a baby and you suffered a muscle injury and your muscles are now super tight, is that healable? Yes. If your IC is the result of chemotherapy, chemical-induced cystitis, again, not an injury, is that healable? Yes, but you could have a legacy of nerve sensitivity. And I think the big question really is, and this is the hard part. I mean, for those of us who have herpes, myself included, can you cure a virus? No, once you have a virus, you have the virus. The question is, can you keep it in remission? And that answer is yes, we can keep viral infections in remission. We can use lysine. We can use antivirals to bring that viral population down. But you know, the great majority of people around the world have oral herpes. I have oral herpes. I got it when I was a kid, when some adult kissed me when I was a baby. And that's how it got passed. So I will always be prone to canker sores. And the challenge with herpes is that it can be stress induced. Breast cancer can be stress induced also, believe it or not. My oncologist told me that. I asked my doctor, why me? Why would I have breast cancer now? And the answer was only 15% of breast cancer is genetic. For the rest of it, it's environmental exposure combined with periods of intense stress. Well, caregiving to dying parents was intense stress. That's certainly what caused mine. There's no doubt about it. So, you know, this is something else that we all have to take responsibility for, and that is we all have to accept the fact that stress can damage the body over time, and we've got to learn good stress management skills. We've got, you know, nobody can come and fix that. We've got to learn them. God doesn't give you the skills when you're born to handle with the death of your parents. You've got to talk to people and read a book. And if you're struggling with anxiety, take an anxiety management class like I did. So anyway, so Jennifer, can pelvic therapy cure IC? No, pelvic therapy heals tight pelvic floor muscles. Stop thinking of this as an incurable disease. We don't think of it that way anymore. Can Hunner's lesions be seen on cystoscopy? Yes, they can, provided the doctor has the right cystoscope. The old cystoscopes would not have shown a Hunner's lesion, but the new ones have. Specifically, it's called a narrowband imaging cystoscope or a flexible cystoscope. The new ones made in the last 10 years should be able to see Hunner's lesions, so you would not have to have a hydrodistension. Mary says, so if nerve damage can cause lesions, how do we fix that? We calm nerves down. We have to do things that calm nerves down, like palmitoyl ethanolamide, Peora. That calms nerves down. Getting stress, you got to get your stress under control. Stress amplifies pain. Stress promotes neuroinflammation. We have to find that peace and comfort and living in a less stressful environment to just get our whole body to calm down. Bree said, I've had 2 cystoscopies done and there were no lesions. What does that mean? That's fantastic, honey. That's great news. That means you have a healthy bladder wall. I didn't have Hunner's lesions either. And yet I had terrible bladder symptoms. Why? Because my pelvic floor muscles were so tight, they were squeezing the blood supply. My bladder wasn't getting the blood supply it needed to be healthy. Once we restored blood supply with pelvic floor physical therapy, all my bladder symptoms went away. It's quite exciting. I mean, you got to follow the data here. Listen, if you have a cysto and there's a healthy bladder, that's great news. That's great news. Your next question is going to be, okay, then what else can be triggering some of these symptoms? And we're going to look at muscles. We're going to look for fibroids. We're going to look for other things that have the potential of involving the bladder and triggering some of these urinary symptoms. Borea says she's had UTI. She's had her 3rd UTI in 2 months. Okay, so Borea, you are in the recurring UTI category. And so for you, the most important question is you need to have identified the name of the bacteria. Is it E. coli, staph, strep, et cetera, et cetera? I would want to know for your last 3 infections, the name of the bacteria. Because if it's the same bacteria over and over and over again, then that means you probably have a very drug-resistant bacteria. You know, and the challenge now, I mean, think about how it was 10, 20 years ago. If you had a UTI, the doctor just phoned in a prescription. They didn't do a lot of testing. We can't do that now. There's a dramatic increase in drug-resistant UTIs. I just did an article on it. Like now, more than half of the urinary tract infections that were tested in a big study done by Kaiser Permanente, more than half were resistant to at least one antibiotic. And I forget the statistic, maybe like 20% were resistant to 3 antibiotics. So if you're having recurring UTI, we need to understand, is it the same bacteria? And we also need to know what drug resistancies are there, because they might just be giving you the wrong antibiotic. And so next generation DNA urine testing would do that. That would identify the drug resistant genes, and it would give you a very clear answer on how you should be treating them. Anna says, how much lactoferrin should we take? The IC study with lactoferrin was 1,000 milligrams for a week, 400 milligrams for 2 weeks, and 200 milligrams for several months afterwards. The lactoferrin that I brought into the IC Network shop comes from Australia, and it comes in 300 milligram capsules, not 200 milligram capsules. And so what we have been suggesting to patients who want to follow that protocol is 3 a day for the first week, 2 a day for 2 weeks after that, and 1 a day for several months after that. But if you're sensitive, if you're unsure, I'm extremely sensitive myself. I don't do well with pretty much anything out there that's foreign. And so when I started taking lactoferrin, I just took 1. And no matter what supplement I take, I usually just take 1. So you have the choice of kind of following the protocol or just doing 1 or 2 a day and just seeing how you do. But it's an interesting experiment. Now, we've only had one person who had her doctor told her not to do lactoferrin, and she had a pre-existing problem with her pancreas and pancreatic stones. The lactoferrin is involved in the development of stones in the pancreas for people who have pre-existing pancreas problems. But for the rest of us, if you look at the lactoferrin studies, the safety profile is excellent. And I would encourage you to do that. If you come on over to the IC Network website, we have a paper on it. And in fact, since we're only streaming on Facebook, since YouTube shut down again, let me show that to you. Here, hold on a sec. I just have to clean up my desktop before I show you my desktop. I want to make sure I don't have like passwords showing. I did that once. I actually revealed the most important password in the IC Network as a business. I had to delete that stream right away and change all the passwords. Okay, here, hold on. Oh, my face. I always felt young until major surgery. Now I don't feel as young as I used to. But I don't feel old either. Okay, hold on. I'm just cleaning everything up here. God, I have a lot of windows open. Okay. Let me do this. Okay, I can do that. And okay, hold on a sec. Let me just transition to my desktop. Busy desktop. This is my streaming computer. So that's the Facebook that I read your things on, right? That's what I'm looking at when I'm answering your questions. All right. So let's go over to the IC Network website, which is icnetwork.org. All right. So this is our front page right now. You know me, I'm always playing with images. So that's the current spring image I have on the IC Network website. Of course, you can watch our master class, which is the future of all IC on the internet is in video form. So I'm working on that. Here is the lactoferrin. So a new study found that lactoferrin is remarkably helpful at calming the bladder wall and preventing IC flares. I go through the treatment protocol, but most importantly, I'm giving you all of the references. So I've got the link to the IC study. There it is. And I encourage you to read the research so that you can decide if you're comfortable with it. But here's a bunch of new papers that you can do, including one here on lowering breast cancer rates. I mean, this is so interesting. Why do women who have had children are at far less risk of breast cancer than those of us who have not had children? Because of lactoferrin. Because when you're breastfeeding, you're producing a lot of extra lactoferrin, and that's boosting your immune system. I didn't have children, so I did not get the benefit of that lactoferrin. Fascinating, right? Okay, and then here's something else I want to show you. This is the brand new paper that I put up early last week. We have, so PEA, known as Peora, is our palmitoyl ethanolamide. That's the one that was found to reduce pain in IC patients. 87% of IC patients, it reduced pain back in 2019. And we have a lot more studies with PEA now. So I've got the IC study. Here's a chronic pain paper. But most recently, we've got research showing that it reduces the pain of menstrual cramps. And not just for taking it for a long period of time, that they showed a reduction in pain a half an hour, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours after taking PEA, like Peora. We have a paper showing it reduces the pain of endometriosis for men watching. We have a paper showing it can reduce the pain of chronic prostatitis. And again, I have all of this research. Guys, it was on sale. I announced the sale last week. It's not on sale right now, but if you call me and you place your order with me, I'll give you 15% off. But you have to talk to me. You can't talk to my staff. Okay, and again, look at all this research. Look at all this research. It's just fantastic what we're seeing with PEA now. All right, so hold on a sec. I need to go back here. And let me go back to my face. Not that you need to see my face. And let me go back here. Okay. So, lots of really good things are happening right now. I'm super excited by what I'm seeing. 20 years ago, we only had Aloe and we had Sister Q and Sister Protect. But it's very, very different now. And one of the reasons why I'm not on the Aloe bandwagon like we used to, I mean, because it was all we had back then. We just had so little options. But now we have all this really good productive research showing that PEA calms nerves down. Lactoferrin can boost the immune system. And so that's where we're focusing now. I follow the research. Okay, again, Mary says, would shingles be related to Epstein-Barr? Yes, it would. Patricia says, how do you know if you need pelvic floor therapy? Can you pee on command? Can you literally sit on the toilet and pee like a horse? If you can, you've got good pelvic floor muscles. If your flow is slow, if you can't start your urination easily, if your urine spray is spraying the toilet in random directions, which can happen, if you feel a pulling sensation, a pushing sensation, those are all signs of muscles. Lisa says she has very painful hunters, then I would definitely consider the lactoferrin if you haven't tried it yet. I think it's viable. Laura says, how do you know if you have a ligament injury? Prolapsing. And also, do you have a history of injury or trauma? Okay, now again, you guys, I apologize. Facebook just jumped me all over the place and I do not see things in order here. So if I missed your question, please don't take that the wrong way. That's just Facebook doing its thing. Bree says, what would you recommend to help with bladder pressure? So pressure is a weird symptom because for some people, pressure is the symptom that the brain gives you when it's actually pain. So I tend to think of pressure and pain as being kind of synonymous for a lot of patients. One of the ways that the bladder wall tells you that it is extremely irritated is this feeling like your bladder is full even when it's empty. So a typical pressure flare, you go to bed at 11, you wake up at midnight, your bladder feels very full, you go to the bathroom, you pee out a quarter of a cup of urine. You go back to bed, you wake up 30 minutes later, your bladder feels very, very full, you go to the bathroom, you get a teaspoon of urine. You go back to bed, you wake up 15 minutes later, if you've gone to sleep at all, your bladder feels very, very, very full. You go to the bathroom and you got nothing, and you might strain and get a drop. And then for the rest of the night, that's where you are. Your bladder feels very, very full, even when it's empty. And that's the way that the bladder communicates that it is in great distress. And so that symptom, I had that many times. And remember, I had a healthy bladder wall. That was all coming from the fact that my muscles were very, very tight and they were restricting blood supply to my bladder. And my bladder was kind of screaming, help me, help me. I don't have enough oxygen. I don't have enough nutrition. And that's what makes patients more food sensitive, even if it's coming from tight pelvic floor muscles, is that you're in a state of ischemia. So that sense of fullness, even when your bladder is empty, is a classic symptom. And whenever I work with a patient who's got that symptom, the very, very first thing that I look for is there something every day that the patient thinks it's safe that it's actually bladder irritating? Because that to me is a sign that we've got a bladder that's being persistently irritated every single day, severely irritated every single day. And eventually the bladder cries uncle and says, help me, help me, help me. And it gives you that symptom. And so if, for example, you're drinking coffee every day, if you're taking a multivitamin, if you're drinking orange juice, if you're drinking alcohol, if you're smoking, that there's something every day that's provoking